We interact with incredible technology every single day. The smartphone seamlessly linking us to the world, the complex systems running in modern cars, even smart devices at home.
Right. We see the outside, the screens, the features.
Exactly. We press the buttons, experience the speed, but underneath it all, kind of hidden away on these tiny circuit boards, there are essential components doing, well, all the heavy lifting, making everything possible in really small spaces.
Exactly. And these aren't just, filler components. They're critical building blocks. They're what enable the miniaturization and the high performance we just expect now.
Getting more power, more speed, more features into smaller and smaller devices.
That's the constant push, yeah.
Okay, so let's take a deep dive today into one of those crucial, often unseen elements, multi-layering surface mount inductors, or MSMIs for short.
MSMIs, right? So
Right.
think of an inductor like a tiny electronic shock absorber, or maybe a filter. It basically stores energy in a magnetic field, and it resists sudden changes in current. That's vital for managing power flow, um, filtering out noise from signals, stabilizing voltage, really important in complex circuits.
And the multi-layering surface mount part, what does that tell us?
Good question. So, multi-layering is about how they're built. It lets engineers pack a lot of inductive power into an incredibly small physical footprint, like stacking things up, basically.
Right, making it dense.
Exactly. And surface mount, that means they sit right on top of the circuit board instead of having leads going through holes, saves a ton of space, lets you make those really high density layouts you see in modern electronics.
Right, so these aren't just theoretical parts. They are like fundamental to getting complex stuff into minimal space.
Absolutely. And according to the source material we're digging into today, that's a report from Cognitive Market Research, these components aren't niche at all.
No, where are we seeing them?
Well, they're essential across huge growing industries. Think consumer electronics, obviously.
Uh,
Automotive electronics, big one there. Telecommunications, industrial automation, they're widespread.
okay, so our mission then for this deep dive is to really use the data from this cognitive market research report to understand the global market for these vital components.
Yeah, let's explore how it's evolving, what's pushing demand, and, where the growth is actually happening geographically.
Sounds good. Let's start with the big picture globally, because the report paints a pretty clear trajectory, doesn't it?
It does. It shows this market is on a solid upward path, which makes sense given that rising demand across all those industries we just mentioned. They're all interconnected.
And the numbers themselves, they tell a story. What did the report find for market size?
Right. So the global market for MSMIs, it was valued at $1,052.5 million back in 2021.
Okay, over a billion.
Yeah. And it saw healthy growth from there, reaching $1,416.1 million by 2025. So that's quite a jump in just 4 years.
And they're looking further out
Right.
at the projections.
They're quite strong, indicate sustained momentum, really. The market's projected to hit $2,563.4 million by 2033.
Wow. Okay, so from about 1.4 billion in 2025 to over 2.5 billion by 2033.
Exactly. And if you look at that specific forecast period, 2025 to 2033, that translates to a compound annual growth rate, a CGR of 7.7%.
7.7%. For a component like this, sort of a foundational piece, that feels like pretty significant growth.
It is. You're essentially looking at the market size almost doubling in, 8 years from that 2025 figure?
That near doubling. Okay, so what exactly is fueling this? What's powering this growth? The report points to some key drivers, right?
Yes, and they align, well, perfectly with the major tech shifts happening all around us. No real surprises, but the scale is impressive.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest is just that relentless drive for smaller, more powerful consumer electronics. I mean, every time you get a thinner phone, a lighter laptop, maybe a more capable smartwatch or earbuds.
Right, they keep packing more in.
Exactly, and that requires jamming more functionality into less space. That simply wouldn't be possible without these tiny, efficient components like these multi-layering inductors.
Makes sense.
What else? Then there's the huge transformation in transportation, the electrification of
Oh,
vehicles.
EVs, right.
EVs, yes, but even, more advanced traditional cars, they rely on incredibly complex electronic systems for everything from battery management and charging to infotainment, advanced driver assistance systems, safety features,
It's all electronics now.
pretty much. And those systems need vast numbers of high-performance components. MSMIs are definitely part of that mix.
Okay. Consumer tech, cars. What else is driving it?
Let's not forget the 5G rollout. That's still ongoing globally.
True. How do MSMIs fit in there?
Well, delivering those higher speeds and handling all the increased data traffic, it requires much more sophisticated signal processing, better power management. Inductors like these are essential for filtering signals, regulating power, stabilizing things, both in the network infrastructure and in the 5G devices themselves.
Okay, so infrastructure and the phones connecting to it.
Precisely. And the report also just broadly mentions increased demand across automotive electronics, telecommunications, and industrial automation in general. It's really clear these little inductors are fundamental components. They're enabling the evolution of so many critical sectors.
So, okay, these big global trends are pushing the market. But where is this playing out most strongly on the ground? Let's dive into the regions. The report gives specific figures, right?
Yeah.
For 2021, 2025, and the 2033 projection.
It does, yeah. Provides a nice breakdown.
Where should we start? Asia Pacific.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
The report positions APAC as, well, not only the most dominant market today, but also the fastest growing one.
Dominant and fast growing. Okay, what do the numbers show?
They show that dominance really clearly. Asia Pacific's market size was already large back in 2021, $438.9 million.
Almost half the global market then.
Pretty much, yeah. It climbed to $618.8 million in 2025, and the projection for 2033, it nearly doubles that 2025 value, hitting a staggering $11,146.9 million.
Wow, over $1.1 billion just in APAC by 2033.
Yep, that's projected.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
$1 billion just in APAC by 2033.
Yep, that's projected to be more than double the size of the next largest region. Really highlights its central role.
And within APAC, any specific countries called out? China, I assume?
Oh, yeah. China, as you'd expect, is the undisputed giant. Led the pack already and is expected to reach $460.8 million by 2033. That's a huge chunk of the regional total.
Okay. Any other standouts?
Well, what's particularly interesting in the report is the growth story in India.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. While starting from a smaller base, it was $43 million in 2021, it shows the strongest growth rate within the region. It's projected to jump quite significantly to $122.7 million by 2033.
Nearly tripling from 2021. That kind of acceleration suggests, what, significant underlying demand? Or maybe manufacturing expansion?
Could be both. Definitely something to watch there. South Korea also shows really robust performance, growing from $59.7 million to a projected $150.9 million.
Solid. Japan?
Yeah.
Still a major player?
Absolutely. Japan remains a major contributor, expected to hit $135.3 million by 2033. And the report also notes strong upward paths for Australia. That's $31.06 and projected to $77.99, and also that dynamic cluster of countries in Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia going from?
$21.5 million in 2021 to a projected $59.3 million by 2033. So yeah, APAC is undeniably the primary engine driving this whole market forward.
Okay, engine number one is APAC. Let's move across the Pacific then. North America. How's it looking there?
The report describes North America's role as one of steady, substantial growth.
Steady and substantial. Okay. Figures.
Started at $264.2 million in 2021, climbed to $351.7 million in 2025, and the projection for 2033 is $629.6 million.
So still very significant growth, getting close to doubling from 2021, but maybe not quite the explosive rate we saw in parts of APAC?
Exactly. A solid trajectory, just a different pace.
And within North America, the U.S. is the big player, I assume?
Yes, the United States is the major contributor, accounts for the lion's share, really. It's projected to reach $458 million by 2033.
Okay. What about Canada and Mexico?
Interestingly, the report highlights Canada as showing a slightly higher CGR, compound annual growth rate, than the overall market average. It's projected to reach $124.7 million by 2033, up from $45.2 million in 2021.
8.6% CGR for Canada. That's strong. And Mexico?
Mexico grew at a relatively slower pace, according to the report, expected to reach $46.9 million by 2033. That's up from $21.9 million in 2021. Still growth, just a bit more moderate at 6.3% CAGR.
Okay, got it. Now let's turn to Europe. What's the story there?
The report characterizes Europe as showing stable growth, consistent.
Good. Stable growth, obvious.
Regional revenue began at $215.8 million in 2021, grew to $285.2 million in 2025, and it's projected for $509 million by 2033. So again, solid, consistent growth across the continent, more than doubling over the period.
And key countries in Europe. Germany often leads in electronics.
Yes, and the report specifically calls out Germany as leading the European landscape here, too. It's projected to reach $94.3 million by 2033, up from $37.8 million in 2021.
Okay. Others?
Yeah.
UK, France.
Yep. Other significant contributors showing that stable growth pattern include the United Kingdom, projected at $51.04 MSINs, France, $64.07, Russia, $63.06. Italy is projected at $40, and Spain at $38.05.
So broad participation across the major economies.
Definitely. Even smaller markets like Luxembourg show steady progress, projected to get near $10 million by 2033. And there's a rest of Europe category that surged quite nicely, too, $33.04 up to a projected 86 decamas.
Okay, stable growth in Europe. What about Latin America? How's that market described?
The report says the Latin American market has advanced significantly.
Advanced significantly. Okay, who's leading there? Brazil.
Yes, Brazil is positioned at the forefront of that growth, projected to reach $74.4 million by 2033. That's up from $30.1 million in 2021.
More than doubling. And Argentina.
Argentina is another key player mentioned, also projected to more than double, from $13.5 million to $32.5 million by 2033.
Okay, any others mentioned?
Yeah, the report also notes steady advancements in Colombia, projected to reach $14.8 million, Peru at 14.4 M, and Chile at 11.8 M is over the forecast period. So you see broad-based progress across the region.
Right, developing nicely. Okay, finally, the Middle East and Africa, MEA. What's the picture there?
The report describes this as a market where emerging economies are catching up steadily.
Catching up steadily. So growth, but maybe starting from a lower base.
Exactly. Growth is present, though maybe at a relatively lower pace than some other regions. Egypt and Turkey, for instance, showed more modest but consistent increases. Egypt's projected at $5.1 million by 2033, Turkey at $6.4 million.
Okay.
There's also a rest of Middle East segment the report tracks. Interestingly, it stayed relatively constant between 2021 and 2025, around $12.01, but then it shows projected growth kicking in to hit $17.6 million by 2033.
Interesting lag, then pickup. And Africa, South Africa.
Yes, in Africa, South Africa is noted as the leading contributor, expected to reach $20.2 million by 2033. Nigeria also shows consistent, though modest, growth projected to hit $9.6 million.
Okay, so really if we step back, we've seen this clear picture of, well, broad-based growth pretty much everywhere across the globe. Led strongly by APAC, definitely.
Absolutely, but with very substantial contributions coming from North America and Europe, too.
Right, and those developing markets in Latin America, the Middle East, Africa, they're also on the rise, adding to the total picture.
That's right. The report does acknowledge, just briefly, that while the market's expanding, there are challenges for manufacturers to navigate.
Does it say what challenges?
No, it just mentions the point without detailing specific ones, but it's, a realistic reminder that growth paths, even strong ones like this, often come with hurdles, supply chains, material costs, competition, usual suspects, probably.
Right, good point. But the overall trajectory, as you said, seems clear.
Very clear.
Yes.
Okay, so let's quickly summarize the key takeaways from the report for you, the listener. The global market for these multi-layering surface mount inductors, those tiny crucial components enabling miniaturization, it's seeing significant and really widespread growth. Asia-Pacific is definitely the powerhouse. It's the most dominant region and the fastest growing, fueled particularly by the sheer scale of China, but also the accelerating growth we saw in India.
Meanwhile, developed markets in North America and Europe, they're providing substantial and stable contributions to this overall expansion. Reliable growth there.
And those emerging economies across Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa, they're also showing steady progress and increasing demand, adding their weight to the global trend.
And it's crucial to remember that this growth isn't happening in a vacuum, right? It's fundamentally driven by those huge technological trends transforming our world.
Exactly. The push for smaller, more powerful consumer devices, the massive investment in electrifying vehicles, and the global build-out of 5G networks. These little parts, these MSMIs, they are absolutely essential. They're like the foundational building blocks for the future of electronics in so many ways.
So, given how vital these components are for, cramming complex functions into smaller and smaller devices, enabling everything from advanced smartphones to smarter cars, here's something to maybe think about.
Yeah.
As this market continues its strong growth, and these foundational components become even more sophisticated, even smaller, even more efficient, what entirely new types of technology, what capabilities that maybe seem impossible today might become achievable in the coming years, just because we can fit more power and intelligence into incredibly small spaces.
Hmm. That's a fascinating thought. It really makes you appreciate the tiny things that make the big picture possible, doesn't it? Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're pulling back the curtain on something absolutely essential, powering, your phone, your car, the internet itself. But it's likely invisible to you. Multi-layer surface mount inductors.
That's right. And they aren't exactly glamorous components, are they? But they are, well, foundational building blocks.
Really?
So our mission today is really to dig into this source material. You've got this market report, and
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
you've got this market report, and pull out the core insights.
Okay.
Figure out what's driving this market, the sort of significant hurdles it faces, and where it's all headed.
Okay, let's unpack this then. One of the first big takeaways from the report seems to be how central these tiny components are, especially for the relentless march towards miniaturization.
Exactly. I mean, as devices like smartphones, tablets, and especially wearables get smaller and
Yeah,
smaller,
they constantly shrink.
you need components that don't just fit, but offer stable power handling and signal filtering in these incredibly tight spaces. And multi-layer inductors are designed for this precise thing they offer. High current handling with a minimal physical footprint.
So packing more punch in less space. Think about a smartwatch.
Yeah, exactly. Packing all that functionality in. These components manage the power flow without hogging precious room.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
What's another big driver the source material points to?
Well, a really critical catalyst is the global rollout of 5G and, next-gen wireless networks in general.
Yeah, okay.
Telecom infrastructure needs extremely efficient signal conditioning, especially for those high frequencies.
Right.
So these inductors provide essential functions like impedance matching, basically making sure the signal flows efficiently with minimal loss and filtering out unwanted noise at these higher speeds.
Okay. So they're directly enabling the faster, more reliable wireless we all kind of expect now. And the report mentions cars, too. Their importance there.
Absolutely, particularly with the rise of electric vehicles, EVs, and just increasingly digitized cars overall.
Makes sense.
In EV battery management systems, power converters, ADS, advanced driver assistance systems, these multi-layer inductors pop up for voltage regulation and suppressing EMI.
EMI, electromagnetic interference.
Right, stopping components from messing with each other's signals. And what's really notable, the report says they're reliable even in those harsh, high-vibration automotive environments.
Wow. So, okay, powering our personal tech, the network connecting it, and the cars we drive, they sound like they're everywhere. But the source material makes it clear it's not all smooth sailing, right?
Yeah.
What are the key challenges here?
Well, a significant hurdle is definitely the manufacturing complexity. Creating these multi-layer structures, it requires incredibly precise layering and then sintering. That's the process of fusing the ceramic and metal layers together with heat.
Okay, sintering. Got it.
And even microscopic imperfections can just totally disrupt the component's electrical properties.
Okay.
So quality control becomes extremely difficult and, frankly, costly.
Yeah, I can imagine. Tiny things mean tiny tolerances. Big problems if they're not perfect. What about the stuff needed to make them, the materials?
Supply chain risk is a major concern. It's tightly linked to sourcing those raw materials, things like specialized ceramics, ferrite, certain metal alloys. The report points to, well, volatile pricing and geopolitical instability. Especially for materials tied to specific regions. This can really impact manufacturers, particularly those based in places like the US, Japan, Europe.
Geopolitics hitting something you can barely even see? Fascinating. Is performance ever a limitation? Do they hit a wall sometimes?
Yes, they can. Especially in, let's say, extreme use cases. Thermal performance can be a bottleneck.
Heat.
Yeah, particularly when operating at very high frequencies or handling large currents. In really demanding industrial or maybe aerospace applications, these inductors can face issues like overheating or magnetic saturation.
Saturation, meaning they just can't handle any more magnetic energy.
Exactly. And sometimes that means you just have to look at alternative component types for those jobs.
Okay, so complex manufacturing, tricky material sourcing, and thermal limits in tough conditions. Those are the big challenges. But looking ahead, what promising trends does the report highlight? Where's the innovation happening?
Well, one major trend is their integration into advanced packaging technologies,
Mm-hmm.
like system in package or SIP modules.
SIP, so embedding them.
Right, embedding the inductors directly into a single chip unit alongside other components. It drastically reduces things like parasitic loss and saves that crucial board space.
Which is perfect for compact devices again, right? Or like RF chipsets, future AR/VR maybe?
Spot on. It's really next level integration.
And high-speed computing, things like AI servers, is that driving demand too?
Oh, absolutely. The surge in AI, cloud infrastructure, high-speed computing in general, it's fueling demand for inductors in, say, voltage regulation modules, memory buffers.
Why them specifically?
They're favored here for their fast response times and low EMI, which is just critical for stable, high-performance computing.
Fast response is definitely non-negotiable for AI. Okay. And finally, the report mentioned sustainability.
Yes, that's becoming bigger. Increasing global environmental regulations, notably in places like the EU and North America, are pushing for materials innovation.
Like RoHS compliance,
Yeah.
lead-free.
Exactly. There's a growing demand for components that meet those standards, driving R&D into greener materials that, crucially, don't compromise performance.
Okay. So pulling it all together then, the core insights seem to be these tiny multi-layer surface mount inductors are key enablers for miniaturization in the devices you use every day, for the 5G networks expanding everywhere, and for the boom in EVs.
Right. But they face real hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
That complex precision manufacturing, securing often volatile raw material supply chains, and dealing with thermal limits in demanding situations.
And the future trends point towards deeper integration into advanced packaging, becoming indispensable in high-speed computing like AI servers, and a clear shift towards more sustainable materials.
Exactly. So for companies in this space, mastering that precision manufacturing, locking down those critical materials, and innovating on integration methods, those are going to be key differentiators.
Especially as our digital and electric infrastructure keeps advancing globally, these are the components just quietly enabling the systems we all rely on.
It really does underscore how often the most impactful tech progress is built on mastering the challenges of these incredibly small, often completely unseen components.
It definitely makes you stop and think, doesn't it, about all the other crucial microscopic parts out there, just silently powering the future without us even realizing. Something to consider next time you glance at your phone.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.